Welcome to the world where ruthless mobsters meet their fate. Thank you for joining us. The story begins now. The blood was still fresh on the sheet when Clara decided enough was enough. 3 times. 3 times her body had betrayed the only purpose for which she apparently existed in this mansion of marble and secrets. 3 times she had felt life slip through her fingers, while doctors murmured empty words about bad luck and trying again. She watched Dr. Mancini pack his instruments with movements too precise, too clinical. 7 years treating her, 7 years of promises, and the man still couldn't look her in the eye. "How long this time?" Clara asked, her voice hoarse from crying for the past 48 hours. 6 weeks of absolute bed rest, then we can consider—" "No." The doctor froze, finally meeting her face. Clara saw something cross his features. Fear, guilt. "Mrs. Cavalcanti, I understand you're emotionally distressed, but don't call me that." She sat up in bed, ignoring the dizziness. "That surname comes with expectations I'm apparently incapable of fulfilling." The bedroom door opened without ceremony. Francis Cavalcanti filled doorways the same way he filled boardrooms, with absolute presence and deadly silence. The tribal tattoo climbing up his neck seemed darker today, contrasting with his immaculate white shirt. His black eyes swept the room, cataloging, calculating. "Doctor, out." It wasn't a request. Mancini practically ran, mumbling something about returning tomorrow. Clara watched the doctor disappear, then turned her attention to the man who had been her husband for the past 7 years, and was still in many ways a complete stranger. "I came as soon as Pietro called." Francis closed the door but didn't approach. He never approached without permission. It was one of the few courtesies he maintained. "How are you?" "Alive." Clara pulled the silk robe, covering the stained nightgown no one had bothered to change. "Apparently that's more than I can say about your heirs." Something passed across his face. Genuine pain, perhaps. But Francis Cavalcanti wasn't a man for emotional displays. "Clara." "No." She raised her hand. "Don't give me the speech about time or fate or whatever other platitude your lawyer prepared. I want answers. I demand answers." "What kind of answers?" "The kind that explains why a perfectly healthy 27-year-old woman has lost 3 pregnancies in 5 years. The kind your Dr. Mancini seems incapable of providing." Francis finally moved, walking to the window overlooking the meticulously maintained gardens. 3 floors below, men in dark suits patrolled the grounds, always patrolling. Mancini is the best fertility specialist in the Southern Hemisphere. Then maybe the problem isn't his to solve. Clara stood, testing her legs. Steady. Good. "I want a second opinion." "No." The answer was so definitive that Clara blinked. "Excuse me?" "Mancini knows the particularities of our situation." Francis still didn't face her. Another doctor would ask questions. "Great, I have questions too. Dangerous questions." Ah, there it was. The word that governed every aspect of their lives in this gilded cage. Danger. Clara crossed the room, stopping inches from him. She barely reached his shoulder, but she'd learned early that intimidation had little to do with size. "You know what's dangerous, Francis? Continuing this insane cycle. My body is telling me something is wrong. Your precious bloodline is telling me I need to produce results. And your doctor is telling me absolutely nothing useful." He finally turned, and Clara forced herself not to step back. Black eyes examined her with an intensity that still, after all these years, made her stomach flip. "You think I don't know something's wrong?" His voice was low, dangerous. "You think it doesn't kill me to see you go through this repeatedly? Then do something about it." "I am doing something." The shout echoed in the room, and Clara realized it was the first time in 7 years she'd heard him raise his voice. Francis looked equally shocked with himself. He ran his hand through his black hair, messing up the impeccable style. "I'm sorry, that was inappropriate." Despite everything, the pain, the anger, the exhaustion, Clara almost laughed. Inappropriate. My husband yelled at me and he's worried about etiquette. I don't yell. Apparently you do. They stared at each other, and Clara saw the corner of his mouth twitch. Almost a smile. Almost. You're impossible. I'm consistent. She crossed her arms. And I still want a second opinion. Clara. A quick knock on the door interrupted the discussion. Pietro, Francis's personal assistant, entered without waiting for an answer. His normally calm face was tense. Capo, we have a situation. Francis transformed instantly. The frustrated husband disappeared, replaced by the heir of the Cavalcanti family. Speak. Dante is here. Insists on seeing her. Pietro cast an uncomfortable glance at Clara. Says he heard about the incident. Dante. Francis's younger brother, 3 years younger and 10 times more ambitious. Clara had never trusted him, and the way he looked at her always made her feel the need to shower. Send him away. Francis headed for the door. He brought flowers. And he's in the hallway. Pietro looked genuinely uncomfortable. Argued it's his right to visit his sister-in-law in a moment of family loss. Clara saw the muscles in Francis's back tense under his shirt. Family loss, he repeated, each word dripping venom. That's how he's framing it. Among other things, Pietro handed over a tablet. The vultures are already circulating. Someone leaked to the press. Francis read quickly, and Clara saw his expression harden even more, if that was possible. Heiress fails once again. He read aloud. Cavalcanti dynasty remains without successor. Who wrote this garbage? Angelo Di Marco, Pietro replied. The same one who published the last speculations. The same one who has his paycheck signed by my brother. Francis returned the tablet. Curious. Clara felt her blood freeze. Not because of the press. She'd learned to ignore the vultures, but because of the implication. You think Dante leaked? I think my brother has been remarkably interested in your health in recent years. Francis stared at her, especially after each loss. He comes to offer to, what, console? Clara felt nauseous. He comes to position himself. Francis approached, his voice lowering. If you can't give me an heir, the succession rules become nebulous. You have other brothers. None legitimate, none born from the union between the Cavalcanti and Rossi families. He touched her face, a surprisingly gentle gesture. You're not just my wife, Clara. You're the bridge between two empires, and there are people who want to see that bridge burn. Before Clara could respond, another knock, more insistent. Fratello! Dante's voice pierced through the door. I came to offer condolences. Surely you won't deny me seeing my dear sister-in-law. Francis briefly closed his eyes, and Clara recognized the expression. He was calculating, assessing risks, deciding how much blood he was willing to spill today. Let him in, Clara said softly. Clara, if he's plotting something, I'd rather know now. She adjusted her robe, raising her chin. Besides, it would be rude to refuse flowers. A genuine smile, small but real, crossed Francis's face. You play dangerously. I learned from the best. He nodded to Pietro, who opened the door. Dante Cavalcanti entered like someone entering a stage, confident, smiling, holding an obscene arrangement of white lilies. He was shorter than Francis, but compensated with presence. Light brown hair perfectly styled, navy blue suit that cost more than a car, and light blue eyes that never stopped calculating. Clara, cara mia. He crossed the room, completely ignoring Francis. My heart bleeds for you. How dramatic. Clara didn't accept the flowers. You should see a doctor. Dante's smile faltered, then widened. Always so sharp. It's one of the qualities I most admire in you. How nice. Then you won't mind when I say your presence here is as welcome as a tax audit. Pietro coughed, disguising a laugh. Francis remained motionless, but Clara saw the pride in his eyes. I only came to offer support. Dante deposited the flowers on a side table. Family should unite in difficult times. How opportune you mention family. Francis finally spoke. Considering the press was informed about our loss before even our own father knew. The press has sources. Dante shrugged. Hospitals have employees. Money speaks louder than loyalty. Except when loyalty is bought with blood. Francis positioned himself between Clara and his brother. Protective. Always protective. And everyone in this house bleeds Cavalcanti. The tension in the room was palpable. Clara saw Pietro discreetly touch the gun under his jacket, ready. Fratellino. Dante raised his hands in false surrender. I didn't come to fight. I came to offer a solution. We don't need your solutions, Francis replied. Maybe Clara does. Dante finally stared at her directly, and Clara saw something cold in his eyes, calculated. 3 losses, Clara. Any rational person would question if the problem isn't in the process. Clara felt Francis tense beside her but kept her expression neutral. Continue. Dante? Francis's voice carried warning. There are other doctors, international specialists, clinics in Switzerland, in Germany. Dante continued, ignoring his brother. Places where privacy is guaranteed and results are more promising. Mancini is perfectly competent, Francis cut in. Mancini is old and tired, Dante retorted. 3 failures prove it. Watch your words. Or what, Fratello? You'll hit me for speaking the truth, for worrying about my sister-in-law's health? Clara watched the chess game unfold. Dante provoking, testing limits. Francis controlling himself, but barely. And there she was, in the middle, the piece both wanted to move. I appreciate your concern, Dante. Clara intervened before the situation escalated. But my medical decisions are between my husband and me. Of course. Dante inclined his head. Just keep in mind that time is a finite resource. You're 27 today. But how many more chances can your body handle? It went too far. Clara saw the exact moment Francis decided. He crossed the space between them in 2 steps, grabbing Dante by the throat and pinning him against the wall with enough force to crack the plaster. My wife, Francis hissed. My marriage, my problems. You have no voice here. Dante choked, but his eyes gleamed. Satisfaction. He'd gotten exactly what he wanted. A reaction. Francis, Clara touched his shoulder. Let him go. He needs to learn respect. And breaking your brother's neck in my bedroom will teach that? She kept her voice calm. Let him go. For a long moment, Clara thought he wouldn't obey. But then, Francis opened his hand, and Dante collapsed to the floor, coughing. Get out, Francis ordered. And if you mention my wife again without respect, there won't be a pretty room or witnesses to protect you. Dante stood slowly, adjusting his suit. Even with red marks on his neck, he smiled. I'm just trying to help, Fratello. He headed for the door, then stopped, looking at Clara. Think about my offer. There are better doctors, and maybe the problem isn't you. He left before Francis could react again. The silence that followed was dense. Pietro discreetly positioned himself near the door, preventing any surprise return. He knows something, Clara said finally. What? I don't know. But the way he spoke, it wasn't just provocation. It was knowledge. She turned to Francis. What exactly does Dante gain if I can't have a child? Francis exchanged a look with Pietro. The line of succession changes. If there's no direct heir from us, the family council can vote on a new leader. And Dante has votes. Dante has ambition. Votes can be bought. Clara processed the information, pieces falling into place. So he wants me to fail. He benefits from your failure, Francis corrected gently, which doesn't mean he's causing it. But he could be. Silence. Are you suggesting my brother is sabotaging your pregnancies? Francis asked slowly. I'm suggesting 7 years is a long time for a perfectly healthy person to be unable to carry a pregnancy to term. I'm suggesting your Dr. Mancini seems more interested in keeping me trying than in discovering why I'm failing. And I'm suggesting your brother shows up here right after my third loss, offering help and insinuating the problem isn't me. Francis became very quiet. Pietro seemed to have stopped breathing. If you're right, Francis began. Then we need proof, Clara completed. And we need a doctor we can trust. Mancini is trustworthy. He's worked for the family for 20 years. Works for which part of the family? The question hung in the air like toxic smoke. Francis turned to Pietro. Call Romano. I want Mancini's complete history. Financial transactions, communications, everything. Yes, Capo. And Pietro? Clara added. I want my medical records, all of them, from the past 7 years. Pietro looked at Francis, who nodded. Do what she asks. When they were alone, Clara felt the adrenaline begin to fade. Her legs trembled. Francis noticed, catching her before she fell. You need to rest. I need answers. You'll have both. He guided her back to the bed. But first, rest. If there's a conspiracy, we'll need you strong. Clara let him settle her in, too tired to argue. But when he pulled away, she held his hand. Francis, if we discover Dante is involved, what will you do? He looked at her for a long moment, and Clara saw the predator behind the businessman. Whatever is necessary, even if it's your brother, especially if it's my brother. He squeezed her hand. No one hurts what's mine. No one. There was promise in those words, and threat. Clara should be scared, should question what kind of life she'd been dragged into. But as she watched Francis leave the room, giving low orders to Pietro in the hallway, all she felt was a strange sense of relief. Finally, someone was on her side. Finally, someone saw her pain as more than an inconvenience. And if that meant war within the Cavalcanti family, well, Clara had always been better at fights than surrenders. 3 floors below, in a locked office, Dante Cavalcanti opened his laptop and typed a short message. She's suspicious. Accelerate the timeline. The response came in seconds. Understood. Dr. Mancini is prepared. One more attempt should resolve permanently. Dante smiled at the screen, touching the purple marks on his neck. Soon, very soon, everything that should be his finally would be. The file landed on Clara's lap at 3 a.m. She hadn't been able to sleep, hadn't really slept since the latest loss. When Pietro knocked softly on her door with a manila folder thick enough to be a weapon, she was already awake, staring at the ceiling and counting all the ways her life had become a prison. Romano works fast, Pietro said, his voice carefully neutral. Mr. Cavalcanti said you should see this first, alone. That should have been her first warning. Clara opened the file, and her world tilted. Patient: Clara Rossi Cavalcanti. Diagnosis: hereditary thrombophilia, factor Fe, Leiden mutation. Date of diagnosis: March 2019. Treating physician: Dr. Giancarlo Mancini. March 2019, 4 months after her wedding, 6 years ago. Her hands shook as she flipped through page after page of lab results, genetic tests, blood work, all showing the same thing. She had a clotting disorder, a treatable, manageable condition that, with proper medication, would allow her to carry a pregnancy safely. And Mancini had known. For 6 years, through 3 losses, he had known, and he had said nothing. Clara's vision blurred with rage, not tears. She was done crying. Pure, crystallized fury. She found Francis in his office, still dressed despite the hour, staring at his own copy of the file. A glass of whiskey sat untouched beside him. You saw, he said without looking up. Why? Her voice was ice. Why would he hide this? Money, or fear, or both. Francis finally met her eyes. Romano traced payments, 50,000 euros, deposited monthly into an offshore account in Mancini's name. For the past 6 years. From a shell corporation, registered in Luxembourg, owned by Dante. Francis nodded. Clara felt something crack inside her chest. Not her heart, that had broken 3 times already. This was something deeper, something fundamental. He paid Mancini to let me suffer, to let our babies die. The words felt foreign in her mouth, too terrible to be real. Why? The longer you fail, the stronger his claim to succession. Francis stood, and Clara saw murder in his eyes. If you'd been diagnosed properly, treated correctly, you would have carried to term years ago. We'd have an heir. His leverage would be gone. So he killed them, Clara's voice broke. He killed our children before they had a chance. Clara, don't. She held up her hand. Don't tell me we don't know for sure. Don't tell me we need more proof. That file is proof. Those payments are proof. I know. Then what are you going to do about it? Francis was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of finality. What needs to be done? Dr. Mancini arrived at 8 a.m. sharp, as summoned. He didn't leave alive. Clara didn't witness it. Francis had insisted she stay in their private wing, but she heard the shouting, the pleading, then silence. Pietro brought her coffee 2 hours later, his knuckles bruised. "It's handled," was all he said. Clara should feel something. Horror, maybe. Guilt. But all she felt was hollow satisfaction. And Dante? That's more complicated. Pietro shifted uncomfortably. He's family. There are rules. He murdered my children. I know. Mr. Cavalcanti knows. But the council, the old guard, they won't move against Dante without ironclad proof that holds up in front of witnesses. The payments can be explained away. Mancini is dead, so he can't testify. So Dante wins. Not quite. Francis entered, rolling down his sleeves. Clara noticed the faint spray of red on his collar. I've called a family meeting, tonight. Everyone who matters will be there. To do what? To force his hand. Francis's smile was predatory. Dante thinks he's clever, hiding behind corporate veils and dead doctors. But he's also arrogant. Give him an audience and a chance to gloat and he'll slip. And if he doesn't? Then we find another way. He cupped her face. I promise you, Clara. He will pay. The dining hall felt like a mausoleum. 17 members of the Cavalcanti inner circle sat around the massive table. Francis at the head, Clara at his right. Dante directly across, perfectly composed in a charcoal suit, that infuriating smile playing on his lips. Such drama, fratello, Dante said, swirling wine. A mandatory dinner, how theatrical. We're celebrating, Francis replied smoothly. Clara received good news today, medical news. Clara saw Dante's hand tighten on his glass. Barely perceptible, but there. Oh, how wonderful. Do share. It seems she has a treatable condition. Thrombophilia. Strange that Dr. Mancini never mentioned it in 7 years. The room went silent. Stranger still, Francis continued, that Mancini received regular payments from an offshore account. Registered to a company you own, Dante. Dante laughed. Actually laughed. Are you seriously suggesting I paid our family doctor to... What, exactly? Fail at his job? How would that benefit me? You tell me. I don't have to tell you anything. Dante stood. This is insane. You've lost your mind with grief. Sit down. The command in Francis's voice stopped even Dante. He sat, but his eyes blazed. You want to know what I think? Dante leaned forward. I think you're desperate. Your wife can't produce, so you're creating conspiracy theories. Blaming me because you can't accept that maybe, just maybe, Clara simply isn't capable. Clara felt Francis tense beside her, ready to lunge across the table. She put her hand on his arm. Let me, she said softly. She stood, every eye in the room on her. You're right, Dante. I couldn't produce. For 7 years I failed. Lost 3 pregnancies, each one tearing me apart while you sent flowers and sympathy. She walked around the table slowly. But now I know why. And now I can be treated. Which means your window is closing. Dante's smile never wavered. I'm happy for you, Clara. Truly. Are you? Because I'm pregnant again. The lie fell like a bomb. Clara watched Dante's face, saw the micro-expressions flash: shock, calculation, fury, then forced joy. That's wonderful news. When? 2 weeks along. Too early to announce, but given recent concerns, Francis and I decided transparency was important. She stopped beside his chair. You'll be an uncle soon, Dante. Isn't that wonderful? His jaw clenched. Wonderful. Of course, I'll need a new doctor. Mancini has retired. Any recommendations? I'm sure Francis has that handled. Actually, Francis interjected, I've hired a specialist from Geneva, Dr. Helena Voigt. She'll be arriving tomorrow, round-the-clock monitoring. Nothing will be left to chance this time. Clara saw it then, the flash of pure panic in Dante's eyes. Because if she was really pregnant, and really being monitored properly, his plan was finished. The meeting ended shortly after. Dante left quickly, phone already to his ear. In their room, Francis paced. You shouldn't have lied about being pregnant. If he believes it. He does. Did you see his face? Clara kicked off her heels. He's panicking, which makes him dangerous. Good. Let him panic. Let him make mistakes. Clara, if he thinks you're carrying the heir he spent years preventing. Francis stopped, running his hands through his hair. He might do something drastic. Then we'll be ready. He crossed to her, gripping her shoulders. I'm serious. Dante doesn't play games he can't win. If he's cornered, he'll lash out. I'm counting on it. Damn it, Clara, this isn't… The explosion cut him off. The windows blew inward, glass shattering across the room. Francis threw Clara to the ground, covering her body with his, as debris rained down. Alarm shrieked. Footsteps thundered in the hallway. Pietro burst through the door, gun drawn, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead. Capo! The East Wing! Someone planted explosives! Casualties? 4 guards, and… Pietro's face went white. Your father's study. He was inside. Francis went rigid. Then he was moving, running, Clara forgotten on the floor as he sprinted toward his father's wing. Clara struggled up, ears ringing, tasting blood. She saw it before Pietro did. The figure in the doorway, Dante. Disheveled, soot-stained, but very much alive and holding a gun. This is your fault, he said quietly. All of it. Pietro started to turn, reaching for his weapon. The gunshot was deafening in the confined space. Pietro crumpled, and Dante turned the gun on Clara. Time for Plan B. Clara stared at the gun, then at Dante. Plan B? That's what you're calling this? She gestured at the smoking hallway. You bombed your own family home and killed your father. Some plan. He's not dead. Yet. Dante's hand was steady. Too steady. Just incapacitated. And when he dies, the council will need to vote on succession immediately. With Francis's pregnant wife as your hostage. Brilliant. Clara kept her voice level, even as her mind raced. Pietro was bleeding out beside her. She needed to buy time. Let me guess. You force Francis to step aside, or you kill me and the imaginary heir? Dante's eye twitched. You're bluffing. About the pregnancy. Am I? You have to be. It's too convenient. Too perfectly timed. Clara smiled, cold and sharp. Then pull the trigger and find out. Of course, if you're wrong, you've just murdered the only legitimate heir to both the Cavalcanti and Rossi fortunes. The council will have you torn apart. His hand wavered. Just slightly. You're insane, he breathed. I'm a Cavalcanti. Goes with the territory. She took a step toward him. Here's what's actually going to happen, Dante. You're going to lower that gun, surrender, and pray Francis is feeling merciful. Because if you pull that trigger, pregnant or not, you're a dead man. I'm already a dead man if I don't take control tonight. Dante's voice cracked. You think Francis will let me live after this? After Mancini told him everything before he died? So Mancini had talked. Good. Then you have nothing to lose. Clara kept walking forward. So shoot. Clara, don't… Pietro gasped from the floor. She ignored him, staring into Dante's eyes, watching the calculation, the fear, the desperation. He pulled the trigger. Click. Empty chamber. Clara's smile widened, even as her heart hammered. 4 guards. Pietro. 5 shots. "Did you really think I wasn't counting?" Dante's face contorted with rage. He lunged, swinging the empty gun at her head. Clara ducked, drove her knee into his groin, and as he doubled over, grabbed a shard of broken glass from the floor and pressed it to his throat. "Now," she hissed, "we're going to walk out of here calmly, or I open your jugular and let you bleed out on Francis's Italian marble. Your choice." Footsteps thundered closer, voices shouting orders. "Clara!" Francis's roar echoed through the hallway. "In here," she called back. "With your brother. We're having a discussion about family values." Francis burst through the doorway, gun drawn, face splattered with blood and soot. His eyes found Clara, standing, alive, holding a glass shard to Dante's throat, and something like relief flashed across his features before hardening to pure fury. "Stand down," he ordered, but Clara wasn't sure who he was talking to. "No." Dante's voice was muffled, forced against the glass. "She's lying, about everything. The pregnancy, Mancini's testimony. Mancini sang like a canary before Pietro put a bullet in him." Francis cut in coldly. "Told us about the payments, the falsified reports, how you threatened his family if he didn't comply." He stepped closer. "He also told us about the thrombophilia diagnosis. 6 years, Dante. You let her suffer for 6 years. She was a means to an end. She's my wife." The roar made everyone freeze. Clara felt Dante tremble against her. "She's more than that," Francis continued, voice dropping to something deadly. "She's smarter than you, tougher than you, and apparently—" His eyes flicked to the empty gun on the floor. "Better at basic math." Despite everything, Clara felt warmth bloom in her chest. "Your father?" she asked quietly. "Alive. Pissed. Asking for you, actually." Francis holstered his weapon. "Pietro?" "Shoulder wound," Clara said. "Needs immediate medical attention." 2 guards rushed in, hauling Pietro out. He managed a weak thumbs up as they passed. "And this piece of garbage?" Francis gestured at Dante. Clara pressed the glass deeper, drawing a thin line of blood. "I have suggestions. Most involve slow deaths." "Tempting." Francis pulled zip ties from his pocket. "But the council has questions. Stand down, Tesoro." The endearment was new. Clara liked it. She stepped back, dropping the glass. Immediately, Francis had Dante restrained, 2 guards dragging him toward the door. "You can't prove anything," Dante screamed. "The explosion! Anyone could have—" "We have you on security footage entering the East Wing 20 minutes before detonation," Francis said calmly. "We have Mancini's signed confession. We have financial records. We have attempted murder of my wife in front of witnesses." He smiled. "How's that for proof?" Dante's face crumpled. "Fratello, please. I'm family. You stopped being family when you murdered my children." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Dante was dragged away, still screaming threats and pleas. When they were alone, Francis finally let the mask crack. He pulled Clara against him, crushing her to his chest. "When I saw the explosion, when I thought—" His voice broke. "I'm fine. You held a glass shard to an armed man's throat." He pulled back, gripping her shoulders. "That was the stupidest, bravest, most insane thing I've ever witnessed. He only had 5 bullets. You counted his bullets. You married me for my mind, remember?" Clara grinned. "Per the contract, Section 3, Subsection B, the bride demonstrates superior intelligence and strategic capability." Francis stared at her. Then, impossibly, laughed. Actually laughed. "You're absolutely insane." Again, Cavalcanti, occupational hazard. He kissed her then, hard, desperate, claiming. not the distant, obligatory kisses of their wedding night or dutiful attempts at conception. This was possession and relief, and something that felt dangerously close to... "Sir." A guard appeared in the doorway, tactfully looking away. "The council is assembled. They're demanding answers." Francis pulled back but kept Clara's hand in his. "Then let's give them answers." The council meeting was brutal. 17 men in expensive suits, arguing in rapid Italian and English, accusations flying. Demands for blood, calls for mercy. Francis stood at the head of the table, Clara beside him, and systematically destroyed every argument for leniency. Evidence, testimony, financial records, video footage. By the time he finished, even Dante's most loyal supporters looked ill. "The penalty for treason against the family is death," Francis concluded. "I invoke my right as heir to pass judgment." "Wait." Old Salvatore Cavalcanti, Francis's uncle, stood shakily. "There's the matter of succession. If your wife cannot produce an heir, I can." Clara's voice cut through the murmurs. "I have a diagnosis, a treatment plan. I'll carry the next pregnancy to term. If there is a next pregnancy." Salvatore's eyes narrowed. "Are you currently? That's none of your business." Francis's tone brokered no argument. "It's the family's business if..." "I am," Clara lied smoothly. 8 weeks, confirmed this morning by Dr. Voigt. The room erupted. Francis's hand tightened on hers. "A question." She squeezed back. "Trust me." "Proof," Salvatore demanded. "Medical records are private," Clara shot back. "But Dr. Voigt will arrive tomorrow to begin monitoring. You're welcome to ask her yourself." She was betting everything on one assumption, that Francis would back her play, that he'd understand she needed this leverage, this protection, even if it was built on a lie. "Then it's settled," Francis announced. "The succession is secure. Dante's claim is void." "His sentence is..." The second explosion rocked the building. Lights flickered. Screams echoed. And in the chaos, Clara felt cold metal press against her spine. "Nobody move." A woman's voice, familiar but wrong. "Or the pregnant Principessa dies." Clara turned her head slowly. Dr. Helena Voigt, the specialist from Geneva, who wasn't supposed to arrive until tomorrow, smiled apologetically. "Sorry, Liebling. Change of plans." "You're not Dr. Voigt," Clara said calmly, despite the gun at her spine. Very perceptive. The woman's German accent was flawless. "I am, however, an actual doctor, also a very expensive freelancer. Your husband's security vetting is disappointingly thorough. Took me 3 months to build this legend." "Who hired you?" Francis's voice was ice. "Dante? Dante?" The woman laughed. "That amateur? Please. He couldn't plan a birthday party, much less a hostile takeover." "Then who?" "Me!" The voice came from the doorway. Victoria Rossi stepped into the room like she owned it, which, Clara supposed, she technically did, or had, before she'd married off her daughter to secure her own debts. Clara's mother looked exactly as she remembered. Perfectly coiffed blonde hair, designer dress, and eyes like a shark. "Hello, darling." Victoria's smile was poisonous. "Miss me?" "Let me see if I understand this correctly," Clara said, her mind racing. "You faked a doctor, planted explosives, and orchestrated this entire mess to..." "What? Get your daughter back? How maternal." "Don't be dense, Clara. It's unbecoming." Victoria circled the room, her heels clicking on marble. "I orchestrated this to renegotiate our contract." "The marriage contract is binding," Francis growled. "Signed by both families. Under the assumption I'd deliver a broodmare who could actually breed." Victoria examined her nails. 3 failures rather changes the terms, don't you think?" Clara felt Francis tense beside her. The insult was calculated, designed to provoke. "Careful, Mrs. Rossi," he said quietly. "You're in my house, surrounded by my men, threatening my wife. That's 3 reasons to put you in the ground." "Is it a threat if she can't produce your precious heir?" Victoria smiled. "Because according to my sources, The real Dr. Voigt, who I have on retainer, Clara's thrombophilia is manageable but complicated. Success rates hover around 60% even with treatment. Not exactly solid succession planning. Your sources are outdated, Clara interjected. I'm already pregnant. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Liar. 8 weeks. Confirmed. Growing nicely. Clara kept her voice steady, selling the lie. Which means your leverage just evaporated. Show me medical records. Show me why I should negotiate with a woman holding a gun to my back. The fake, Doctor. Voigt pressed the barrel harder against Clara's spine. Because I can end this pregnancy very permanently. Do it, Clara said flatly. Pull that trigger, and you lose the only thing keeping you alive in this room. My husband has 12 armed guards outside that door. You have 1 gun and a terrible exit strategy. Clara, Francis warned. No, let's be clear about the math. She addressed her mother directly. You came here to renegotiate. That requires me alive and pregnant. Otherwise, you're just a failed extortionist about to be murdered by a very angry mafia heir. So let's skip the theatrics and get to your actual demands. Victoria stared at her daughter for a long moment, then laughed. When did you grow a spine? Around the 2nd time someone tried to kill me this week. Funny how mortality focuses the mind. She gets that from you, Francis muttered. I know. It's terrifying. Victoria gestured, and the fake doctor lowered her gun slightly. Fine. Here's what I want. 20 million euros. Immediate transfer. Clara's medical care transferred to my oversight. And revised succession terms that protect Rossi interests if she fails again. Absolutely not, Francis said. Then my associate shoots your heir right now. Your associate shoots my wife, and I burn the Rossi family to ash. Francis's voice dropped to something deadly. Every business, every asset, every relative. Gone. You want to play extortion? I'll show you scorched earth. The room went silent. Victoria's smile faded. You wouldn't dare. The council just watched me present evidence against my own brother for treason. You think they'll blink at me destroying a family that took my wife hostage? He stepped forward. Try me. Clara felt a surge of something warm and dangerous in her chest. Pride, maybe, or something deeper. Mother, she said quietly, you're outplayed. Stand down. I have a gun to your spine, darling. And I have thrombophilia medication in my bloodstream that makes me bleed out in minutes if she shoots me. Another lie, smooth as silk. Kill me, and you watch me die slowly while Francis hunts you for sport. Bad optics. The fake doctor shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Rossi, perhaps we should… Shut up! Victoria's composure was cracking. This was supposed to be simple. Extract the girl, renegotiate terms, profit. Nothing involving my wife is simple, Francis said. You'd know that if you'd spent any time actually raising her. Direct hit. Victoria's face flushed with rage. How dare! The third explosion cut her off. This one was close. Too close. The floor shook. Ceiling tiles rained down. Someone screamed. In the chaos, Clara moved. She grabbed the fake doctor's wrist, twisted hard, and the gun clattered away. Francis was already moving, tackling Victoria before she could run. Guards burst through the door. Capo! The basement! Someone's breached the vault! Francis's eyes went wide. The vault? How? Shaped charges, professional job. They're grabbing files. The guard paused. Sir, they're taking the DNA records. Everything clicked into place for Clara. It's not about money, she breathed. It's about proof. What proof? Francis still had Victoria pinned. Of my pregnancy. Of my condition. Medical records, genetic tests, everything needed to verify succession claims. Clara felt cold. Someone's trying to erase evidence that I can produce an heir. Or steal it to forge their own, Victoria said from the floor. Really, darling, keep up. Who's in the vault? Francis demanded of the guard. Unknown. 3 operatives, military-grade equipment. We've got them bottlenecked, but… An explosion from below. Smaller, controlled. Then silence. "They're gone," the guard confirmed via radio. "Blew out through the sewers." Francis released Victoria, standing slowly. His expression was murderous. "This was a diversion," he said. "The hostage situation, the demands, all theater while someone rubbed us blind." "Not someone." Clara looked at her mother. "Multiple players. Dante had his conspiracy. You had yours. But someone else used both of you as cover." Victoria's face had gone pale. "I didn't authorize a vault breach. My arrangement was simple. Extract you, leverage the pregnancy for better terms. Who hired the doctor?" Francis grabbed Victoria's collar. "Who connected you?" I don't know. Anonymous contact, encrypted channels. They offered intelligence on Clara's medical condition in exchange for timing this distraction tonight." She stopped. "Oh, God." "What?" "They have the DNA records, the real ones." Victoria's voice shook. "If Clara's actually pregnant, they can prove it. If she's lying, they can expose it," Clara finished. "And if I'm exposed as a liar before the council—" "Succession goes to open vote," Francis said grimly. "With Dante already delegitimized and no clear heir, the family fractures." "Civil war," Victoria whispered. "Someone's trying to collapse the Cavalcanti empire from within." Clara's mind raced. 3 separate conspiracies, all converging tonight. Dante's clumsy power grab, her mother's extraction plan. And underneath it all, someone far more dangerous pulling strings. "Who benefits from Cavalcanti chaos?" she asked. Francis and Victoria exchanged a look. "The DeMarcos," they said simultaneously. "The rival family," Francis explained. "We've had a truce for 15 years, but if we show weakness, they'll strike." Clara understood now. And with no clear succession, no legitimate heir, no unified leadership, we're vulnerable. A guard burst in, phone extended. "Sir, it's Luca DeMarco. He wants to talk." Francis took the phone, putting it on speaker. "Cavalcanti." Luca's smooth voice filled the room. "I believe you're missing something. Medical records, DNA files, very sensitive information. What do you want?" "A meeting, tomorrow, neutral ground. You, your wife, and answers to some very interesting questions about succession legitimacy." A pause. "Oh, and Francis? Bring proof she's actually pregnant. Real proof, not the creative fiction she's been selling." The line went dead. Clara met Francis's eyes. "I'm not pregnant," she admitted quietly. "I know." "You knew?" "I know you, Tesoro." He touched her face. "I know when you're bluffing. And I know you needed that leverage tonight. The DeMarcos will expose me, destroy any chance of... Then we have until tomorrow to make it true." Clara blinked. "Make it... You can't manufacture a pregnancy in 12 hours. Francis smiled. Dangerous and dark and utterly insane. "No. But we can manufacture something better." "You want to explain the plan?" Clara asked as Francis dragged her toward his private office. "Or should I just guess wildly?" "The DeMarcos want proof of pregnancy. Medical documentation." He unlocked a hidden safe behind his desk. "We're going to give them something better." He pulled out a file. Thick, official-looking, stamped with government seals. Clara opened it and froze. "Certificate of Genetic Compatibility, Embryo Banking Authorization, Cryogenic Storage. Active. We have frozen embryos?" Her voice cracked. "Had them created 2 years ago. After the second loss, I consulted specialists in Switzerland." Francis's jaw tightened. "Before I knew Dante was sabotaging you, I thought, if we couldn't conceive naturally, we'd have options. You never told me. I didn't want to give you false hope if the thrombophilia made even IVF impossible." He met her eyes. "But now we know what the problem was. Now we can fix it." Clara stared at the documents. Real embryos, real chance, real... "This doesn't solve tomorrow," she said. "The DeMarcos want proof I'm pregnant now. These embryos are in Switzerland. No. Francis smiled. They were. I had them transferred to a private facility in Naples 3 months ago, when I started suspecting Dante. How is that? Dr. Castellano owes me his life, literally. His daughter needed a kidney, and I made sure she got one. Francis pulled out his phone. He'll implant tonight. Emergency procedure. By tomorrow you'll have a developing embryo. Real. Verifiable. Clara's mind spun. Implantation takes time to confirm. Blood tests won't show positive for days. The DeMarcos don't know that. They're not doctors. He was already dialing. We show them the procedure was done. Show them our embryos existed beforehand. Show them you're on thrombophilia medication. It's enough reasonable doubt to hold them off while we consolidate power. And when they demand proof in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, by then, it'll be real. Francis touched her face. If you want it to be. This is your choice, Clara. I won't force you into motherhood to save a dynasty. The sincerity in his voice made her chest ache. We're doing emergency IVF to outmaneuver a mafia rival family, she said slowly. This is insane. Completely. And if it doesn't work, if my body rejects, then we fight another way, but at least we fight together. He squeezed her hand. What do you say, Tesoro? Want to gamble everything on one night? Clara thought about 3 lost pregnancies, 7 years of pain, Dante's betrayal, her mother's greed, the endless cycle of failure and blame. Then she thought about Francis choking his brother to defend her, Pietro taking a bullet, the pride in Francis's eyes when she'd held glass to Dante's throat. Let's do it, she said. But I want one thing first. Name it. I want to watch when you execute Dante. Francis's smile was savage. Done. The procedure took 4 hours. Dr. Castellano worked in a private clinic, armed guards at every entrance. Clara lay on the table, Francis holding her hand, while the doctor carefully implanted 2 embryos. The thrombophilia medication is already in your system, Castellano explained. I'm adding hormone support. You'll need daily injections, weekly monitoring, and absolute bed rest for 72 hours. She'll have whatever she needs, Francis said. If this takes... Clara's voice was small. What are the odds? With proper medication? 70%. Maybe higher. Castellano smiled gently. You're young, healthy, and now properly treated. The odds are good, Mrs. Cavalcanti. When it was done, Clara felt no different. No magical transformation, just exhaustion and cautious, terrifying hope. Rest now, Francis murmured, helping her to the recovery room. Tomorrow we face the DeMarcos. Tonight, you heal. What about my mother? The fake doctor? Contained, awaiting judgment. His voice hardened. Victoria will answer for her part in this. But first, we deal with the bigger threat. Clara drifted off to sleep with Francis's hand in hers and armed guards outside the door. The meeting was set for noon at a neutral location, an old monastery on the outskirts of Naples, abandoned except for monthly truces between families. Clara wore armor disguised as Dior, a black dress that cost more than most cars, heels sharp enough to be weapons, and diamond earrings that doubled as trackers. Francis had insisted. The DeMarco delegation arrived in 3 black SUVs. Luca DeMarco stepped out first, 40, handsome in a dangerous way with silver-streaked hair and eyes that missed nothing. Cavalcanti, he nodded, and the infamous Clara, looking well for someone supposedly dying. Pregnancy agrees with me, Clara said smoothly. Does it? Luca gestured to a man beside him, older, professional. This is Dr. Bernardi. Independent verification. I'm sure you don't mind. Francis stiffened. We brought documentation. Documentation can be forged. Blood tests don't lie. Luca's smile was sharp. Unless you have something to hide. Clara felt the trap closing. Blood tests would show the implantation happened hours ago. Maybe enough HCG hormone to register. Maybe not. Either way, the DeMarcos would know the timeline was wrong. Unless... Of course. Clara stepped forward. I have nothing to hide, but I have conditions. You're not in a position to make conditions. I'm in a position to walk away and let your family remain in limbo about Cavalcanti succession. She met Luca's eyes. Which means you don't know if it's safe to move against us. Uncertainty is expensive, Mr. DiMarco. I'm offering you certainty. For a price. Luca studied her. I'm listening. I'll submit to medical examination, full transparency. But in exchange, you provide the information you stole from our vault. DNA records, medical files, all of it. Returned. Why would I do that? Because those records prove more than my pregnancy. They prove genetic lineage, succession claims, and family secrets that affect more than just the Cavalcantis. Clara took a gamble, including DiMarco bloodlines. Luca's expression flickered. Barely. But enough. You're bluffing. Am I? Your grandmother was Valentina Cavalcanti before she married into your family. Our vault contains 50 years of genetic testing, including some very interesting paternity results from 1975. Clara smiled. Want to bet your legitimacy that I'm lying? The silence was deafening. Francis stared at her. She'd never told him about the file she'd found while researching their families. The file that proved the DiMarco-Cavalcanti feud was built on a lie. They were cousins, not enemies. You have 1 hour to decide, Clara continued. Return the files, get your certainty about my pregnancy, or keep them and wonder every day if I'm carrying the heir that legitimizes Cavalcanti rule while your own succession is questioned. Luca's jaw clenched. This is extortion. This is negotiation. Try to keep up. For a long moment, Clara thought he'd shoot her. Then Luca laughed, actually laughed. No wonder Francis married you. He pulled out his phone. Bring the files. 15 minutes later, Clara was in a medical room with Dr. Bernardi, while Francis and Luca negotiated outside. The doctor was thorough. Blood draw, ultrasound, physical exam. Well? Clara asked when he finished. You're pregnant. Very early, perhaps a week based on hormone levels. He frowned at his equipment. Though the numbers are unusual. Almost like the conception was very recent. Clara's heart hammered. Is that a problem? Not medically, but timing-wise. He met her eyes. Mrs. Cavalcanti, when exactly did you conceive? Does it matter? You confirmed pregnancy. That's what Mr. DiMarco wanted. I confirm hormonal changes consistent with early pregnancy. Whether that pregnancy is viable, natural, or... He paused. I'm not in the business of family politics, but someone will ask questions. Let them ask. Clara stood. Your report says pregnant. That's the truth. Mostly. When she emerged, Francis was waiting. His eyes asked the question. She nodded slightly. Relief flooded his features. Luca approached with a hard drive. Your vault contents, all of it, untouched. And your decision about the 1975 files? Clara asked. Those stay buried, along with any mention of shared bloodlines. Luca's voice was steel. This conversation never happened. Agreed. They shook hands. A truce built on mutual blackmail and manufactured pregnancy. Not ideal, but effective. As they drove away, Clara finally exhaled. The 1975 files? Francis asked quietly. Your great-uncle and his grandmother had an affair. His legitimate son, Luca's father, is actually a Cavalcanti by blood. Clara smiled. Makes the whole feud rather awkward. You researched our enemies. I researched everyone. Knowledge is leverage. She paused. Did Dr. Bernardi's report work? He confirmed early pregnancy. DiMarco is satisfied. Francis took her hand. But Clara, when the timing becomes obvious, we say the stress caused early implantation symptoms. Or we don't say anything and dare them to question it. She met his eyes. I'm pregnant, Francis. Really. As of last night. That's not a lie. And if it doesn't take, then we try again, and again, until it does. Her voice hardened. I'm done letting other people write my story. This is my choice, my body, my future. Francis pulled the car over, cupped her face, and kissed her like she was oxygen. I love you, he breathed against her lips. God help me. I love you. Clara froze. In 7 years of marriage, he'd never said those words. You love me, she repeated carefully. Desperately. Probably have since you told my uncle his wine selection was pedestrian and obvious at our engagement party. He smiled. You're brilliant and fierce and absolutely terrifying. How could I not? I threatened your brother with broken glass. I know. It was magnificent. Clara started laughing. Couldn't help it. The absurdity, the danger, the sheer insanity of falling in love with her arranged husband while pregnant with maybe viable embryos and threatening mafia rivals with genetic blackmail. This is the worst romance ever, she gasped. It's ours, Francis said simply. And somehow, that was enough. 3 months later, Clara's baby bump was small but unmistakable as she stood in the private execution chamber, watching Dante on his knees. You don't have to be here, Francis murmured beside her. Yes, I do. Her hand rested protectively on her stomach. 13 weeks, past the danger zone. 2 healthy heartbeats confirmed yesterday. Twins. He murdered 3 of my children. I'm staying. Dante looked up, his face gaunt from months in the family's holding cells. The golden boy was gone. Only desperation remained. Clara, please. Cara mia. Don't. Her voice could cut glass. You lost that right when you paid Mancini to let me suffer. I never meant. The pregnancies weren't supposed to fail. Just delay. 3 babies, Dante. 3. She stepped closer. You didn't pull a trigger, but you're still a murderer. The council, Father could grant mercy. Father voted for execution. Francis's voice was flat. Unanimously. Even your supporters abandoned you. The old man, Francis's father, recovered from the explosion, stood in the corner, leaning on a cane. His face showed no emotion as he watched his younger son beg. Any last words? Francis asked. Dante looked at Clara, and she saw something break in his eyes. I'm sorry, for whatever that's worth. It's worth nothing. Clara turned away. Do it. The gunshot was quiet, professional. Pietro, recovered from his shoulder wound, lowered his weapon. Clara didn't flinch. Victoria Rossi's punishment was more creative. You're banishing me? Her mother's voice was shrill in the family court. To where? Croatia. Francis handed her documents. A lovely villa. Isolated, heavily monitored. You'll have an allowance, enough to live comfortably, but not enough to cause trouble. This is barbaric. You held my pregnant wife at gunpoint. Francis's smile was cold. Be grateful I'm letting you live. Clara wanted you buried next to Dante. Victoria's eyes found her daughter. You'd really kill your own mother. You sold me to settle gambling debts. Clara's voice was steady. You're not my mother. You're a cautionary tale. Clara, please. Enjoy Croatia. Don't come back. 2 guards escorted Victoria out, still protesting. Clara felt nothing but relief. That was harsh, Francis observed. That was kind. You should have seen my first draft. Clara smiled. It involved sharks. He laughed, pulling her close. Remind me never to cross you. Too late. You already married me. Best decision I ever made. 2 weeks later. The family gathering was smaller now. Dante's supporters purged, new alliances formed. The DiMarcos had honored their truce, tentatively, with Luca even sending an obscenely expensive baby gift. 2 cribs, custom Italian leather. Clara had laughed for an hour. Pietro stood at his usual position, fully healed, but now wore a wedding ring. He'd married a nurse from the hospital, the one who'd saved his life. You made an honest man of him. Clara teased. I made a smart decision, Pietro's wife, Rosa, shot back. Someone needs to keep these Cavalcanti boys alive. Amen to that. Frances found Clara on the terrace, watching the sunset over Naples. Her hand rested on her bump, obvious now at 18 weeks. Twins, he said softly, standing behind her. We're having twins. Boys, according to the last scan. Clara leaned back against him. Your father is thrilled. 2 heirs, double the dynasty. I'm terrified, Frances admitted. What if I'm terrible at this? What if they hate me? Then they'll take after me. Clara turned in his arms. Frances, you faced down your brother, protected me through conspiracies, and helped me blackmail a rival family with genetic secrets. Fatherhood is going to be easy. You have strange definitions of easy. I have strange definitions of everything. You knew that when you married me. I didn't know you then. Not really. He touched her face. 7 years in an arranged marriage, and I'm only now learning who you are. Terrifying. Magnificent. He kissed her softly. I meant what I said 3 months ago. I love you, Clara. Completely, desperately, maybe since the beginning, but I was too stupid to realize. You were very stupid, she agreed. Good thing I'm smart enough for both of us. About that. Frances pulled a small box from his pocket. Clara blinked. We're already married. I know, but this... He opened it, revealing a ring. Not the massive diamond from their wedding, but something simpler, a platinum band with 2 small sapphires. This is for the marriage we're choosing, not the one we were forced into. Tears pricked her eyes. Damn pregnancy hormones. Frances Cavalcanti, are you proposing to your own wife? I'm asking if you'll stay married to me, not because of contracts or families or dynasties, but because you want to. He took her hand. Because somewhere between death threats and genetic blackmail, I fell in love with you. And I'm hoping, praying, you might feel the same. Clara looked at this man. Her husband. The dangerous, controlled mafia heir who'd murdered for her, protected her, and somehow learned to love her. You're asking if I love you? Yes. After everything? The arranged marriage, the losses, the conspiracies? Yes. Clara pretended to consider. Well, you did let me watch Dante's execution, and you didn't flinch when I threatened my mother with sharks, and you do look very good in a suit with blood spatter. Clara. Yes, you idiot. I love you. Probably since you defended my wine criticism at our engagement party. She grinned. I thought you were just being polite. Turns out you actually have taste. He slipped the ring on her finger, next to her wedding band. 2 rings, she observed. 2 babies, 2 hearts, 2 people who somehow made this insane marriage work. It's very poetic for a mafia don. I'm very poetic when properly motivated. She pulled him down for a kiss that tasted like lemon and promises and dangerous futures. When they finally separated, Francis rested his forehead against hers. What happens now? He asked. Now? Clara smiled. Now we raise 2 boys, probably terrify them with our parenting, and rule this empire together. I'll handle the strategy, you handle the violence, and we'll both handle the dirty diapers. That's your vision of the future. That's my vision of us. She took his hand, placing it on her stomach. Blood and sarcasm, Francis. It's what we do best. He laughed, really laughed, and Clara felt something settle in her chest. Peace, maybe, or just the certainty that wherever this dangerous, chaotic life took them, they'd face it together. I love you, he said again. I know. She kissed him. Now let's go inside before Pietro starts making jokes about romantic sunsets. Too late. Pietro's voice came from the doorway. I've been making those jokes for 10 minutes. You 2 are disgustingly cute. We're terrifying, Clara corrected. You're both, Rosa called. Now come eat. The babies need nutrition. As they walked inside, Frances kept her hand in his, Clara looked at their intertwined fingers, the wedding band from duty, the sapphire ring from choice, and smiled. 7 years ago, she'd been promised to a stranger for money and power. Today, she chose him. Every dangerous, violent, fiercely protective inch of him. And when their sons were born 4 months later, healthy, screaming, and already displaying personalities as strong as their parents, Clara held Francis's hand through labor and knew with absolute certainty this was never the marriage she wanted. It was better, because sometimes the best love stories start with blood, bullets, and a woman brave enough to count her enemy's ammunition. And sometimes, just sometimes, arranged marriages lead to chosen love. 1 year later, Leonardo just threw up on Dante's portrait, Clara announced, carrying their 1-year-old son into Francis's office. Excellent aim. Francis didn't look up from his paperwork. What about Marco? Sleeping, finally. She deposited Leo on the desk. Your son has your timing. Waits until exactly 3 a.m. to demand attention. Our sons, Francis corrected, catching Leo before he grabbed confidential documents. And they have your stubbornness and your tendency toward violence. Leo bit Pietro yesterday. He's teething. He's a Cavalcanti. Clara grinned. I'm doomed to raise tiny mafia dons. Francis pulled her onto his lap, Leo wedged between them. Regrets? She thought about explosions and conspiracies, executions and blackmail, the insane journey from arranged marriage to actual love. Not one, she said honestly. You. Only that I didn't fall in love with you sooner. You were slow. I forgive you. Leo grabbed Francis's tie, making happy baby noises. And Clara thought, yes, this, exactly this. Blood, sarcasm, and love. The perfect combination. End.